Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're doing another edition of Pages Promotions Summer Virtual Book Festival 2020. This is a special edition focused primarily for authors, but if you guys are readers and you'd like to listen in, we won't mind. We're talking today with marketing expert Bill Matthews. Hey, Bill. He's going to be giving us some marketing insights. He's going to answer some questions. If you guys have marketing questions, feel free to throw them at him, and he will do his very best to answer them. He's also got being the guy that he is, he's a research guy, so he did a bunch of research and he found out a bunch of information that he might be sharing with us today that we may not know. So, Bill, how are you?
I'm great, Diana. Thank you. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm so glad that you're taking the time to do this with us today. So let's start with, give us just a really broad, I mean, we probably know this, but since this is going to be recorded, I'd like to kind of have it for posterity. Can you give us a broad understanding of the focus of a marketing plan? Why should we have one?
Why marketing? Okay. So from a highest level, marketing is a term that doesn't describe one activity. It's more of an umbrella term. So if you have a marketing degree, or if you know people who work in marketing or advertising or copy editing, B2B, things like that, they all work in marketing. Why is because the average American receives 10,000 advertising messages a day, whether it's a billboard on the highway, the radio, all of your social media streams, televisions, movies, product placement, and everything. So marketing is to bring awareness to your general public, ideally target audience, in a avenue, a method, or a medium, hi Charlie, that they would see in their regular daily lives to make them aware about your product. And then another part of marketing is deciding what is the message you're going to send them? Who is your demographic? Understanding them. We can get into more detail around that. But the reason is people aren't omnipotent. They won't know, pick a well-known product. The new Mustang is coming out unless you tell them. If it was the first year of the of a Mustang, go back to the middle of last century, they wouldn't even know the product existed unless someone told them. Alternately, now there are fans and they're watching for the new releases. They've been trained through 60, 70 years of the marketing and advertising for a vehicle platform that the new ones are coming in August, maybe not this year, August, maybe it'll be next spring.
Right.
2020 is a little unusual. Why marketing is so that you generate awareness and then you can control the message, not just bringing awareness, but then driving behavior. Ideally.
So I've talked to a lot of authors. You know, when I was managing the scriptorium, I had a lot of authors coming in to place their books with us. I've done a lot of these festivals throughout the years, as we all have. And often I run into, if you build it, they will come kind of thought process among authors. And I don't know if that's authors specifically, but that's the community I walk in. I think it might be product wide. I mean, across the board with every product. I call it the field of dreams fallacy, because as we've all learned, just because you wrote a book doesn't necessarily mean somebody's going to go out to Amazon and buy it immediately. So as we talk about marketing for authors, what do you think is an important memory trigger that authors should have while they're marketing?
I thought a lot about how to deliver this first message, because I do want to deliver it, but it might be considered bad news, because I'm not an artist and I'm not an author personally, but I'm a marketer. So the bad news is, hopefully it's good news, but some people, if they are truly of the if you build it, they will come methodology or thinking, it is a job. It is a well-oiled machine, or should be. It is an effort. It requires daily thought, if not daily activity. So marketing, I mean, there are gigantic marketing firms. The big publishers are gigantic machines that find and fund those departments, all their efforts, because it works, because it pays off. So The biggest message I would say is look at those that are successful as organizations, maybe not as individual authors, because there are unique situations, and we can talk about some of those. There are authors who have a history of long-term history of success. Their marketing efforts can be smaller because they are able to ride on notoriety and name brand recognition already. But if you are not an established author, it is an effort to either job out or take on a new industry, unless you also work in marketing.
Right. At this stage, does anybody have any questions for Bill? Because Bill and I can talk about this for hours and you guys can just eavesdrop, but I'd like to get your questions answered if you have any.
I have a list of things that aren't necessarily questions, just maybe things to discuss.
Sure.
There's something called going wide, where you have your ebook, your print on demand, and all that. That's all fine and dandy, but like if I'm not getting any profits back on ebooks, why should I continue to do ebooks? And if you stop doing that, is that considered no longer going wide then?
So there's two answers to your question. I'm going to give you my personal answer first, and it's a little cutthroat and brutal. Again, I'm really on the business side of the things, and that is follow the money. If you are not selling any ebooks, my first question would be, what's your genre? Who's your target audience? And do they read or buy ebooks? There's stats on that out there. I think the lowest percentage of ebook readers is the 65 and up. Honestly, you don't look like you write books for them, but maybe you do. I don't know. The highest percentage is the 18 to 29-year-olds. They buy the most ebooks a year. The children, they aren't even tracked. But if you're doing children's board books, don't bother, because the sales are so low across the board. The next question would be, are you wide enough to be international, or are you looking at just North America, United States? Those are the questions, because one of my starting points of this big machine that is marketing is knowing your target audience, knowing their demographics, knowing where they buy things, where they learn things through advertising messages and things like that. I wouldn't discount them without answering all those questions, without having those answers. But the stats show that there are certain people who do not read board books, or there are certain people who don't read ebooks. There are people who love hardcover books, all by their demographic. So I guess I don't want to answer your question with a question, but that's a great question you asked. But I'd love to get more.
I would say my target audience is probably adult, more middle age, both genders. It's science fiction, space opera. So.
Okay.
But I mean, the publisher that I'm using is BookBaby. They're a bit on the expensive side.
Right.
They do have quality paperbacks and things, but like $249 for an ebook to get it all converted and globally distributed.
Okay.
And then a few sales, like 1% back.
Right.
That's not good.
So I'm going to keep asking you questions if that's okay, because that information doesn't discount it yet. So I heard you say globally. They're prepping your book for ebook sales on every platform and probably every format in all the major first world, maybe second world markets, I'm assuming, right?
Yep.
Are you translating it into non-English speaking?
No.
Language? Okay, so as an example, you're selling your book in France as an ebook in English, or as an example, right? Available. Okay, so that's a consideration. The next one is, how are you advertising it? Are you throwing it up on the site for sale? And which is fine. The follow-up question would be, what is the algorithm triggers you're using to make sure your ebook is searchable by any customer, any consumer, any reader? Right. And is it changed by market?
Like 7 metadata tags to use. Right. And I have, picked the ones that I thought may work the best for each of my titles.
Mm-hmm.
So other than...
Okay. So you've got your title, which is a hidden metadata, and then you've got your 7, which is pretty traditional with bigs like Amazon or any of their counterparts internationally. Do you have either local to the United States or internationally social media,
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you're on
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Goodreads, Reader's Favorites,
Okay.
Amazon Author Central.
So you've got, again, you've really gone wide. So that makes perfect sense. But you're only getting a few sales. Are any of them, let me back up because I think I know the answer. The question was going to be, are any of those sales posting comments, reviews, or the like?
No, very little. If I get them personally, then I'll post them up there, like on Facebook and all that, and my website. But
and they would be searchable, and they actually are valuable within the search engine of whichever platform your ebook is for sale on, just so you know. Going back in time, when you launched your book, did you have a launch team? Did you have early reviews? Did you have an early release of your book? So on day one, you had reviews going up, things like that. Did you have an effort to launch, or did you?
well, yeah, there was book launch parties for each of the titles, and then there was a pre-sale through the publisher.
Okay.
But no reviews ahead of the release.
Okay.
So you didn't have back cover blurbs before you did your official launch?
The back cover, yeah, I had all that. That was all
But no, not the synopsis, but did you have endorsements,
No.
ARC endorsements before you launched?
No.
Okay. Okay.
So we could go on, and we could go back and forth, Troy, for like an hour. But my best suggestion for you would be to, and it's well documented, look into Amazon's the biggest. Look into their algorithm. Look into, or just simply Google launch team. There's, I think that the shortest list I found, just a simple Google before the fold, if on your search, will give you 8 tips. The longest was 72. I wouldn't say it's too late, even if you have, it sounds like you have several titles out there. The algorithms that these search engines use when an author is going to look, or a reader is going to look for a type of a book, it's important to have those metadata keywords. The title is actually, and subtitle of your novels are also used in addition to those metadata words in most other search engines. But the algorithm rises you to the cream separates, right, to the top based on number of reviews, frequency of reviews, not just the metadata. Because I want to say in 2019, there were just over 45,000 indie authors just in the United States. It's likely that a lot of them have similar, if not the same metadata. So they have to use some differentiator. It's just math, right? It's a computer. It doesn't think, it doesn't decide, it just follows orders. So if you have a frequent or a spike at a new release, or a frequent or at least consistent trickle of reviews, you will actually rise against another author with an identical set of metadata tags. Does that make sense? There was a lot all at once.
Yeah, so this is why we've been saying in our circles of community forever, those reviews are so important. And you gotta beg, borrow, plead, steal, whatever you gotta do to get, yeah, exactly, pray a lot, get people to please, pretty please, post. Yeah, we just have to get people to post reviews. The really difficult part of that is, how do you cajole reviews, right?
Well, see, I've been getting the reviews here and there from people I know, but then I'll get them, I'll post them on my website, but they're not going on to Amazon because they didn't purchase the book from Amazon.
Right, that's where Goodreads comes in. They don't have to purchase a book to leave a review on Goodreads, and
Right.
Amazon
So then
owns
you have to
Goodreads.
talk them into joining Goodreads, and that's kind of a struggle. So
There's
a lot to.
Right. And that's why it harkens back to Bill's initial comment, which was marketing is work.
Oh yeah.
But
You know, we've been trying to find the secret weapon for years, and it all comes back to marketing is just work.
So what you said, Troy and Diana, is both correct, but there are ways around it, because they can, you can have special pricing, launch day one pricing on Amazon that would allow your friends, peers, network, your launch team, for lack of a better word, now or at the launch of a new book, to have a special pricing for like 99 cents. It's a risk on day one, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but if you're not really hitting the numbers hard with reviews, your sales aren't going to be too big on day one anyway. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I can't remember exactly the wording, but I remember something about there's a price range on Amazon that you want to stay within.
Yep.
Nothing more than, I think, $9.99 and nothing less than, was it 99 cents or $2.99? I don't remember.
It's $1.99. It's 99 to $1.99, and then after that upward, you get a better percentage.
Okay.
So Gene, you've done this 99-cent sale. How does that work for you?
I haven't noticed a huge difference, especially like right now where I can't be out pushing stuff in person. I just try to keep mine at a constant price, and occasionally I'll go like, hey, it's on sale, but I don't usually see a giant spike in sales on ebooks. So.
Okay. So going back up, I want to address both Troy and Gene's comments with what is available for you to search on the internet and learn. So it's not just, these aren't my original ideas. That goes back to the fact that publishing, whether you're independent or you're part of the bigger machine, whether you're one of the big five, whether you're Amazon, it's a machine. It has rules. A lot of it's automated now. At the very least, those automations tie into people's job performance. And even if you're human, you're playing by rules now. If you were to Google and look into the effect and value of positive, consistent reviews, especially day one and day two, and again, use that launch team keyword, you would see feedback, not mine, that you want 25, 50, 100 hits in a day, day one. And then your price goes back, Gene, to your point, off sale. Because by the end of that day, those algorithms will have driven you up. Then
everything gets recycled and reset, right? Once the algorithms do something, it triggers an if-then, doesn't it?
Correct. And if you're, the algorithms run constantly. So that if day two had 0 reviews and then day 3 and then day 4, you will slide down, correct. But you can rapidly rise as well. If someone else is rapidly rising, Troy, to your point, with those 7 meta data keywords, while you're sliding, you'll slide a little faster. The idea is about getting your message out there. None of us have the budget to pick out, TV spots, radio ads, billboards on I-75.
Another point I wanted to talk about is pay to play.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I can't afford that, but so I'm trying to do it organically, but it is a lot of work.
So pay to play does work if you pick the right teammate, the right payer arrangement. I've seen everything from $1,500 a month type subscriptions to $4,000 to $5,000 one-offs per particular novel. It can work. It's a lot of money, but it can be done organically. It depends on the size of your network. A great question for Diana, who's coordinated this book fair, is how many authors are involved in the book fair, Diana?
28.
Okay, so there's an idea you could explore, because now you can just add 28 to your network. 29
right.
counts Diana, 30.
Yeah.
So
and that's kind of what we've been trying to do with this. That's why I've been hopefully inciting authors to promote each other, is because we become each other's network. A lot of the authors involved have been doing that. Everybody's been, for the most part, really great about it. So I think that and I've seen book sales because of this month of sharing and talking to each other and having these Zoom events as well. I've seen book sales come directly from this event.
I've got 2 book sales during this month.
Yeah.
At least.
So and I know other authors have had sales as well. So So yeah, Bill, I think you're right. I think we have to think about who else is in our circle that we can add to our launch team that we normally would see as a peer.
So, so think about it this way. You have to engage the machine and jumpstart the machine. A great example, and you can look up the numbers. I'll paraphrase them, but Oprah writes a book, she doesn't have to do anything, right? Comedian Steve Harvey wrote a book. It was a relationship book. Last I heard, he's top 3.5 million sales because his name is already engaged in the community. He already has a fan following. He has however many followers on Instagram, Twitter, whatever his new media is. He can talk about it on his televised broadcast. None of us have that advantage, right? So how do we engage the machine to get out the awareness, our names, the positive references, to find our demographic, and be able to communicate with them? Troy, I would say if you're looking at the middle-aged, and I don't want to put an age bracket on middle-aged folks, but there's data out there that does differentiate between 30 to 49 and then 50 to 64. So I don't know which is middle-aged for you. You look a little younger than I am. So
Well, I'm 51, so.
You look great. Well, nice. I started salt and peppering a little earlier, I guess. So
yeah, well, you've been rebuilding a house, so there you go.
I got 5 kids. They're gonna do that to you. Yes. We don't have that name brand notoriety, right? Some indie authors get it by way of large publishers or just plain luck. Was it J.K. Rowling got told no 4 or 5 times?
Was it, Gene, wasn't it closer to like 28 times she got rejected?
It was a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it was really stupid. Yeah.
So that's not a plan though, right? I'm
You're right.
thrilled that it happened. I love all of the work. I've read everything. I've seen all the movies. I buy all the merchandise. But I would read their books. Her new book would come out. I'd get it and I'd sit and I wouldn't stop reading till I was done. I'm a huge reader. But that all began with just a shooting star, Halley's Comet event. There is a well-oiled machine with statistics and data around your demographic. If you're looking at the middle-aged age bracket, we'll say 51, right? I'm 49, you're 51. We'll go with that. That way we get to live to 100.
Right.
There's demographics around where they shop, where they buy, where they gain their advertising, where they gain their entertainment media, their advertising media. Are they Amazon folks? And your challenge going wide is going to have to look at that across maybe not every country, but at least each market, and maybe break it up between North America, US and Canada, certainly, the EU. If you're in APAC, that's a whole nother ball of wax, because then you're probably on Alibaba or some related site, right? Maybe not.
Well, there's a lot of platform like Kobo, Scribed, and
Right.
I found my books on some Asian sites that have languages that I can't read, and they have a price there in a currency that I have no idea what it is. But so I'm assuming it's out there.
Okay. So the challenge will be one, language barrier. I think it sounds like you can always figure out, USD is US dollar. All of them have a 3-letter acronym. Developing a network within a home market that's not your own will be a little challenging. Not impossible, but I would personally, and I've worked in every continent except Africa and I guess Antarctica, but we're not counting that one. I would look at US, North America, Europe first, then South America, then Asia, then Africa. Depending on your writing and your style, they're just the easiest point of entry sites with the fewest languages. Most of the EU speaks, Europe speaks English as well, majority. So you don't have to worry so much about translating a book, which is 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, depending on the length of the book, easily, USD. So also developing a network, understanding the marketing message is going to be huge. My favorite story, it goes back to late 70s, early 80s, Frank Perdue Chicken. Anybody remember who that is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it takes a tough man to make a tender chicken, was the tagline here in the States. Anybody know what it turned into for South America? Spanish speaking South America.
No.
Takes a tough man to make love to a chicken. So
Perfect.
when you literally aired in South America. So
Wow.
you gotta watch your translation services and understand the marketing message.
And Google Translate doesn't always work effectively. That's what we're trying to say
There was
here.
no internet. I'm sure it would never happen today, but it didn't even exist back then. That was just, Spanish is the second language example. But if you have the demographics and they are available to understand where your demographic is receiving their marketing messages, where they're shopping, what are they buying, how many books are they reading a year? What percentage of that population has read one or more books that year? It'll actually define for you the market size, and it'll tell you where they're signed up for social media. It sounded like, Troy, you were on a lot of different social media. Maybe focus on 2 or 3, and then post every 2 days on all 2 or 3 versus trying to handle 6 or 7 or 8. Unless your data is, unless you're producing results. You can still go
like the reader's favorite isn't really, I mean, it's just a review site, so
right.
I wouldn't consider that social media. I'm on there with the books and the reviews.
Right.
And I don't do Twitter very often.
Okay.
Or Instagram. Mostly it's Facebook.
Okay, so you've got, I think the big 5 are what? Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. So you're not doing B2B sales or B2B books or self-help books, so you don't need LinkedIn. It's not really a B2C platform.
Right.
From there, though, those are the ones, a consumer who's not actively looking, not an avid reader. I think, Diana, you told me there were some, and I saw on the Facebook page for the festival, there were people posting as their books arrived, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Readers. Those are the folks who will probably be on your book review sites. Casual readers.
And those are the people too, Troy. I'm sorry to interrupt, Bill, but those are the people too, Troy, that you should watch for on our site and invite them to be part of your launch team. Invite them to be part of your fan club because you're already recognizing that those people are avid readers. So anytime you see something like that on any social media platform where somebody is posting a picture of a new book they got or posting a picture of them reading something or somebody else in their family or one of their friends reading a new book, those are the people you want to invite to be in your fan club.
Right.
They may not be your genre, but invite them anyway because you never know who's going to read what.
Right.
So that's approaching like one of my next points. Well, it's not a social media platform, is that of an influencer. So we all know usually there's workout influencers, right? Or fashion influencers. They have their own YouTube channel and they might have a $250,000 viewers, a 250,000 followers or members. The folks that play video games and narrate their own video game so other people can watch them play video games, and yet they have 300,000 viewers. The guy from the Nords, Cutie Pie is a great one to think of. Everybody seems to know who he is.
I think it would be fascinating to get on a podcast or a video blog of somebody's, just so.
As many as you can, absolutely. Because while you may not acquire their list, they might have 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 consistent viewers. The Cutie Pie is his name, guy, was making millions a year in endorsements because he had so many people tuning in every week. The Irishman, Jacksepticeye, his deal was video games. The same thing. He ended up with a tour across the United States. I went and saw him here in Detroit. An influencer is going to bring you go wide exposure. So I wouldn't turn one of those down.
So do you have any advice on how to connect with these influencers?
Finding them that align with your genre and your demographic would be the hardest step. Then you have to establish a rapport with them. They will always have a way to reach out to them, to connect with them, start watching their shows, subscribe.
There's been a couple of times I've tried and never got a response back.
Okay. So that's not personal, because I'm guessing they might, even if they did one a day, an hour a day, they only have 5 hours to broadcast their message, right? say you had a 1 hour show 5 days a week. There's only so much content you can put in there. Find a way, stand out, figure out how to get them a copy of your book, either electronically, paperback, hardcover, build the rapport. But don't go after a beauty and fitness influencer if that's not what your book's about. So, right. One,
and
they're
the
not
other
gonna
thing
pick up the
too,
phone. Yep.
Yep, I'm sorry, Bill. The other thing too is that all of us want reciprocal contact, right? So simply asking an influencer, hey, can I come be on your podcast, or can I do a blog tour with you or whatever, that most people are going to say, okay, sure, I get more content, but how are you going to reciprocate? So if you're proactive in your reciprocation first, you find a list of influencers that you are interested in having them support you, start following them, start subscribing to their podcasts or their YouTube channels, start becoming active with them. And then you can say, hey, I've watched these YouTube channels, I've seen these interviews you've done. This is how I think you're being a great advocate for my genre. Can I ask of you this one favor? Will you promote my next book? Something like that. But it's kind of like a reverse reciprocal thing. People aren't going to help you if they don't think you're going to help them first.
Right.
And it's a real selfish way to look at it, but unfortunately, it's the way it happens.
If it's their business, it makes sense, right? If that's how they're making their money, and so
Right.
that part is true. But so if we think about it that way, Diana, going off of that thought line, it is a business decision. You have to know their business, right?
Right.
It's very difficult for me to go in and try and sell a dishwasher to someone who designs and builds dishwashers for a living, and I don't even know that, nor do I know anything about dishwashers. And I'm selling to someone who's a black belt and I'm only a white belt, for example. Nobody wants to buy from the lowest level member. So you would actually have to make a short list. If you can find five and get to know them by way of their broadcast, their podcast, their YouTube channels, and try and collaborate, try and work with them to at least have that discussion. But you have to know what they're all about. Otherwise, then everybody gets solicitation. I get 100 a day. I have an entirely separate email for solicitation to go to when I go searching the web, because I'm just trying to gather information. I don't need 67 sales emails. So breaking out of the crowd, it's just a whole nother way that you need to break through the clutter. Whether it's an algorithm on your search engine for your ebooks or even your paperbacks that are for sale online, or breaking through the clutter to get through that mind share, the 10,000 advertising messages we get every day in the States anyway. How do you stand apart? So that's the challenge. There is no surefire way other than consistency, which goes back to marketing and advertising. It's a job. We do it in all things. People are always selling, whether they know it or not. Everything is a negotiation. Figuring out what's for dinner can sometimes be a negotiation.
Yeah.
Sale is a negotiation. Depends on who you're talking to. Whether it's your kids, your parents, your peers. So the mindset that you want to do something every day, you want to find out what is working and hit that button more often, right? What's not working, don't spend a lot of time on the things that aren't working. But I guess, Troy, we have most information on your situation right now. I would look at what are your algorithms producing. Maybe go try and find your own book on these different platforms and see where if you're searchable. Don't type in the title, obviously.
Well, if I type in my name, I get 2 or 3 pages of all my stuff.
That's great. But if I were not to type in your name and I just searched for sci-fi
space opera, whatever.
Sci-fi space opera. Where are you? Right.
Yeah. Then I probably won't show up, I said.
Right. So
I haven't done that, but I'm assuming.
I don't know. I could try it later and we can figure out who is showing up. My suggestion, if you find that that's your specific genre, especially if those are your meta words and other folks, other novels, other authors are showing up, take a look at, do they have published, and like we'll use Amazon as an example. They have a lot of recent or a high volume of reviews, positive reviews, especially for a newer piece of work. That might be a difference. So look for the differences. Why are they showing up higher for the same metadata words? Especially if they're, if it's a newer book and they have 50 reviews on day 2. If it's an older book and they have thousands, but they're recent, if they're every couple of days, it will reveal to you what people are doing.
I don't believe it actually lists the metadata for your search, does it?
No, but you know what your words were, right?
Right.
So you don't have to tell me, but use those. See what shows up and who shows up ahead of you. Because again, there's 45,000 plus independent authors. Somebody's going to have matching metadata words. And like you said, if you typed in sci-fi, and you didn't show up, if you got a little more specific, if you use those 7 keywords that you'd put in, that means if they're rising ahead of you, if they're showing up before the fold or you're 3 pages deep, they probably have the same words. And what are the differences beyond that? Because that's going to be the same metadata. If it's reviews, if it's volumes of sales, if it's a big peak in a valley, day 3, they have 100,000 book sales. That's not going to happen. Day 3, they have 100 sales. A year in, they have 100,000 sales. All of those things take an effect on the algorithm. Book sales do count, not just the metadata. Reviews do count, and then timing, frequency, consistency of sales and reviews. So it's all part of it. You can actually, if you look, you'll be able to find it on the internet, how the algorithm works.
Okay. And then another question I have, well, not a question, but what's your view on the Longtail method of marketing?
It depends on your
versus, I guess, individual sales.
It depends on your business model, I guess. I'm on it, to be honest with you. I'm working with two authors right now and on 2 books. Before that, I've done everything from cars to air travel to financial, everything under the sun. So it's going to be on your business model. It's going to be on what works. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I can give you the most intelligent answer to that question.
Okay. Well,
I mean, for a novelist in, I assume, fiction, right?
Well, focusing on a couple titles very heavily, or having 10 titles where the focus is less, but you have more titles out there for sale.
I would most likely use an automotive industry as an example, and I would focus on 1 title. I'll give you a great example, the Chevrolet Corvette. But they also were able to market and sell the Chevrolet Cavalier, was it the Corvair? I mean, they had a whole bunch of other vehicles under the Chevy brand, General Motors, but the Corvette was the shining star, right? Jeep, right? Go back to World War II all the way through the Iacocca days. It was simply the Jeep Willys, then the JK, then the Wrangler. Now you can get a Jeep car, you can get a Jeep sedan, you can get a Jeep pickup. If you have a pinnacle, in that case, if you have an enormous amount of success, people are going to buy your other work. Hopefully they like it and they keep buying more work. But if people like, and I would pick what you feel is your best piece, the rest will follow. People will search you by your author's name instead of by your genre or your metadata words that you happen to get lucky on. Steve Harvey had never written a book before. He wrote a book called, was it Walk Like a Woman, Think Like a Man? It was a relationship book.
It's funny to bring him up because he's the one that inspired me to publish my books.
Oh, have you talked to him personally?
No, it was a motivational speech he gave about jumping off a cliff and taking a
Yes, I've heard parts of that. Yeah.
Definitely.
So he's not known as an author. He's not known as a relationship guy. His career was in comedy, then game shows, which was comedy and, hosting things. Then he got in motivational speaking and became an author. And again, $3.5 million. If you have a single title and that title has, whether you've gone wide or otherwise, but has enough success that people want to read more of your work, I have done it myself. I found a book on a shelf in a used bookstore, loved it, read it in a day and a half, and immediately sought out that author's other work. The car companies do it. Every product that has a tangent offshoot does it. TV shows do it with spinoffs. If you have one home run, you will find more success. The catch-22 is, if your other, this is not personal to anybody, if your other work just isn't that good, you'll be able to turn them off just as fast as you turn them on, right?
Yep.
So if they find your premiere piece, love it, and then read your other work and don't like it, they're going to move on to another author. Just like if, I drove a Corvette and then I drove a Cavalier, then I'll know, well, it's really all about the Corvette, not a Cavalier. No offense.
I've heard that same thing about Ender's Game sequels.
Yeah.
I only got through the first one in a bit myself. Yep.
I've never read the other stuff, but I've heard bad
Yep.
things.
Well, I think too that that scatter method of marketing is harder to wrangle than a more focused approach to focus on one title or one specific. For me, because I write in multiple genres, it's time now. I've written 11 books. It's time now to focus on one major project for nonfiction, and then fiction as a sideline thing. So I'm going to do two things simultaneously, but instead of focusing my marketing efforts on each individual title in my fiction line, I'm just going to say, oh yeah, by the way, I write makeup stuff too, but here's the big thing I'm going to do, which is this teaching piece. So I think a lot of it has to do with where's your own comfort zone in talking about what you do to the world. If you're not comfortable about talking about it and about promoting yourself in that viewpoint, then other people aren't going to stop by your festival table. They're not going to pick you up off a bookshelf. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and toot your own horn, because, we can't afford $5,000 to hire Bill or somebody like Bill to do it for us, right? So, and that's not at all quoting pricing quotes for Bill's behalf. This is, you want to contact him and hire him, he'll tell you what it costs. But what I guess I'm trying to say is, if you want to do it on your own, you got to realize that you have to narrow your focus down. That thing in Marketing 101 where they teach you that funnel system. You really got to figure out what that is for you and then focus on that.
So there's a couple of funnels in marketing. That's one of them. I think my biggest point is, it is a job and you can do it. And you don't have to go to school and you don't have to fail for years. My point in talking about how you can find things easily on the internet, how you can unravel algorithms, how you can make educated decisions about your book launches and your book reviews and your activities, all of that is available to you. If you don't want to take on that job, you want to job it out to pick anyone, right? Your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, your spouse, your better half, whatever. My advice is, you still own, you have to, at the end of the day, own all of the process, own the responsibility for it, whether you're doing the work yourself, whether you've hired a company to do it, whether you've got your peers doing it, your network. The buck starts and ends with you. You're the author. It's your work. You're the artist. You're running the whole thing. Whether it's a narrow focus, the long tail, if you go wide, I think from a standpoint, and again, you can look into it, Troy, to answer your question, but I think predominantly, if you have a shining star, if you have a home run, then other pieces of work, other novels that are older will sell, and people will be waiting in line for your next novel. We can go down the whole next chain of events where you get that success, you capture their information, you get them subscribed to your various social medias, they're on your email list, and then you do not have to worry as much about a launch team if you have a wildly successful effort, because they'll be lined up for book 2 or book 5 or whatever the next book is. The trick is jump-starting it. Steve Harvey's just over 50, and he says he's been working on his acts for about 50 years. And I don't know when you saw him do his motivational speech, but he spent a lot of time struggling. But once he got there, things are a lot easier, because he brings that with him. Stephen King could write something on the back of a napkin and I'd buy it right now, right? He's paid his dues. He got there, right? So narrowing your focus, if you're going to do it yourself, will be the lowest point of entry from a cost standpoint, from a time standpoint, and you'll be able to find the best selection of granular data for your market. You'll know what they're looking to make decisions, where they buy, how big is the market. Sci-fi is sort of right in the middle of the subgenre. I think people spent $590 million last year on sci-fi. So you're in a good spot. Not as good as romance, but if you combine the two, I don't know what a space opera is, but if there's any romance, you bleed over into the, I don't know, 1.4 billion last year. I think if you want to do it yourself, I would narrow the focus. I'm just trying to think about bandwidth, right? We all have so many responsibilities, and we want to sit down and look.
5 years to break even for a title. I don't know for an independent author. I don't know if that's still true.
I don't think so. No. And here's why: you really don't need to spend a lot of money. And all the research I've done, unless you job everything out. If you job everything out, that's a different story. But in your genre, I don't know off the top of my head, but if you're talking sci-fi, space opera, I could tell you could find out real quick what percentage of those readers, what percentage of that age bracket, not to insult you, let's back up. Middle-aged sci-fi readers, how many are there? 20-something sci-fi readers, how many are there? Maybe your market is younger than you think. If we're about the same age, and we are, kids are growing up way faster than we did. I'm not sure if you don't have some younger readers than you think. That would increase your book readership. And that would also change the message of social media platform. So,
all right.
No problem. Narrow your focus on that. Can I ask you a question? Why do you think you're writing towards the middle-aged group?
Well, I only get that statistic from Facebook viewer audience in the stats, and it basically said 40-something female is my highest.
So that's not bad. So let me ask you this though. What's the average age of a Facebook user? Because most of the people in their 20s, they don't even have Facebook accounts. So if you have another source of data, you might find out that you have 3 times that amount of information coming in from a different platform. I don't know if you have that option, but the older I get, the more I realize that only us full grown-ups, middle-aged grown-ups are actually on Facebook anymore. A lot of kids have them for their parents because the parents make them. They want to stay in touch with Aunt Betty, things like that. My kids, Instagram, Twitter, and they're from 15 to 23. And they're way more advanced than I was when I was 15 to 23. So I don't know. If your single source of data is Facebook, look at the Facebook demographics, I guess. Because if you have a 90% of your Facebook population, and I don't know this one, but if Facebook members are 90% of them are 40 or older, then you really don't know what's happening with the under 40 group. And if there's a way to reach them, I mean, you said you don't spend a lot of time on Twitter, but you do have a Twitter account?
Anytime I post something on Facebook, I try to also post it on Twitter.
Okay.
If I remember to do that.
No problem.
Like Instagram, you need a picture or something to do it. That's the first step of the post. So not all the time when I want to post a text is there a picture involved.
Yep.
So that kind of, sometimes I skip that because I don't have anything to go with the text.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's why I've been avoiding Instagram and Pinterest for the same reasons, because I don't always, I think in words, I don't think in pictures. So for me, those 2 platforms are not accessible for the way my brain works, right? But in marketing my stuff, I have to rethink that and go, okay, but what are other people accessing? How are their brains working? So
Instagram is nice for pictures because you can help people get to know who you are as an author. Like, what do you do outside of writing? What have them get to know your interests too. I mean, I post a lot of my gardening, I post my ducks and my chickens, and then I post my books. I post when I have a beer. All the things that I put in my bio that I like to do as an author, that's what I focus on Instagram.
Perfect. That's great. Jean, that's perfect.
Yeah, see, Jean, you're so much better at this than I am.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, it's true.
Reaching out to your readers, potential readers, it's a handshake, right? You have to know where your hand is, and you have to know where theirs is, or you miss. So that's perfect, Jean, because if your books follow along with your lifestyle, then people are going to follow along who have a similar lifestyle and thus like your books. So lifestyle marketing, my recommendation would be looking at Jeep, looking at Harley Davidson. They wrote the book on it. 98% of all Jeeps sold never go off-road, but everybody got to have a Wrangler with four-wheel drive and knobby tires. I don't know why. It's perception. That's why. So they dropped 65 grand on a Rubicon to never leave the pavement.
I'm seeing more and more four-wheel drive vehicles with snorkels in Birmingham. What's that about?
Because that's their self-perception that they are rough and tumble, and that's who they want to be on the way to the accounting office, whatever. But that's lifestyle marketing. It's a great read. There's a bunch of information out on there about it. But that's exactly what you'd want to send. Sure, you don't have to send pictures of your book or illustrations, but if who you are is reflected in your work, then advertise who you are. Like Jean said, having a beer, maybe gardening, whatever it is you do, sitting at the typewriter, hashtag I'm writing. There's a list, a very available list of commonly used hashtags for all the various types of media platforms, social media platforms, that people look for those hashtags. It takes about just a few minutes to find them. And that will lead people to find you because they're looking for that hashtag. So I'll give you an example somewhere. Hashtag am writing is Twitter. Hashtag AM and then writing. People look for that because other really well-known authors use that hashtag, the Stephen Kings of the world and others. I don't know if Stephen King has a Twitter account, but the big names. Writer's Life, sci-fi writer, hashtag sci-fi writer. Again, it takes a few minutes to find them. That will help people find you. And it goes back to the handshake methodology or the handshake thinking. You know where your hand is, you're wondering where theirs is. But maybe they're wondering where yours is as well. And you have to guide them to you. What's your lifestyle? What's your novel about? How do you live? Hi, Charlie. Any questions? Where do you want to go? We could do this a long time.
We could, and I know you have other things.
Like a whole nother hour if we wanted to peel back, like what are you doing, and we could like look up the data live. I would
love to do that. Absolutely. Let's see if we can schedule something like that next month or the month after, and as we all have to do more of this kind of stuff, especially now since we can't see each other around the festival tables. So we have to make more inroads for this. So thanks for your time, Bill. I know you have a whole day planned.
It's 90 here. I don't know if you're in the metro area. Well, you're not. You're up north, but it's time to head to the pool.
Yeah. Thanks so much for your time. I'm super grateful, and I will call you when I get back from my hermitage.
Absolutely.
Next week.
And if anyone has questions,
have an awesome day. Yeah,
absolutely.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, if anyone has questions and they reach out to you, just either pass them along or connect us. Email is probably the fastest way. Especially if you find something that's not congruent with what we talked about, Troy, Jean, Michael, or anyone who's watching down the road. If stuff comes up, let's find the answer. Or if there's any trouble finding some of those things I referenced through searches, let me know and I'll shoot you the key.
And anybody who wants to reach out to Bill, just contact us at pagespromotions.com, and we will be more than happy to connect you up that way. And we have one more virtual book festival Zoom gathering this week. That's on Tuesday. And then we are going to be done for the month. So I appreciate everybody coming out. And one last thing before we go, as you know, we've been doing this all month. There have been, I think, 27 of these Zoom things now so far. And we've been giving away prizes and boxes of books and gift cards. And we wanted to say thank you to a super fan who's been at every single one of these things, Michael Schwartz. I am so grateful for you for all of your kindness and support. Watch Facebook later today. We're sending you a special hand-curated box of books and a $25 gift card for Toadvine Books in Berkeley.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And this
We're,
these sessions have been great. And
well,
tons of information. And Bill, thanks for the information today. Just fantastic.
Thank
So
you, Michael. Congratulations.
yeah,
Oh, thank
thank you
you.
so much, Michael. You've been super supportive. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and we'll see you on Tuesday and then back on Facebook next week. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.